Nikhil, tell me, I mean,
Yes, sir.
this time, what is your first impression of the paper after you see it in the exam hall?
So, like, to be honest, first of all, I was a bit surprised. So, like, even though we were told by even Jurisedge faculty, be it Arohi ma'am, be it you or everyone, so we were told that don't expect any recent judgment, be prepared for basics and all. So we were under a little bit of expectation that there will be certain recent judgments in the paper. But however, so if you see there were no recent judgments particularly, or that of Supreme Court judgment. There were one Bombay High Court judgment, if I'm not wrong. So sir, I was a bit of surprised, to be honest. And sir, initially by looking at the paper, it was around 40 pages, I guess. So first of all, while we were checking for whether there were any changes or corrections in the paper, I thought the paper was a bit lengthy. But however, sir, after the 2 hours, I felt the paper was a bit easy itself. So sir, overall, the paper was fine only. But however, it was a bit of surprises, to be honest.
Yes, yes. That's the thing. Nikhil, the one thing that I want to ask you, as you were saying, it was pretty much unexpected that kind of question,
Yes,
right? So, what are the differences that you have seen? There are previous year's question paper because itself the CLAT has held twice, okay, in this year itself, in 2022. So,
yes,
and previous year, what were the differences that you have seen from the past year's paper, past 2-3 years papers, and this year paper? Any differences that you have found out?
Yes, sir. So sir, even if at all, so prior to this particular thing, I've analyzed CLAT 2022 paper, 2021 paper. So the difference that I could observe or I could decipher from that particular thing was that the emphasis was in this particular 2023 paper was more completely was in basics, sir. Like the entire emphasis, even though sir, they have taken the paragraph from the recent judgment, be it the Bombay High Court judgment, which they have taken November 18th. But the entire 10 questions which they have taken, all were from the basics. It's not that they asked who was the author of the judgment, or it's not that they're taking from the judgment itself. So, sir, if you see in CLAT 2022, they asked who was the author of this judgment, or something which was related to the recent thing. However, in this particular thing, if we see, even though the para was from the recent judgment, but they were completely testing our basics. So that is the one thing which I've found out. When compared to the previous papers.
Yes, true. And that you said regarding that particular IPR Bombay High Court judgment.
Yes, sir.
As you are pointing out, I can still remember that passage and the High Court, that particular excerpts from the High Court judgment, and the 10 questions. Out of those 10 questions, 8 and 9 can be done easily by reading out the passage once or twice, or even not even
exactly.
Because it was based on relatively similar. That one thing is needed for that, why that you will be able to answer the whole thing. Okay.
Yes.
And there are various questions which can be inferred from the passage itself. There are very
yes, sir. Yes, sir. The second thing which I found out was also that, so like compared to the previous papers. So previous papers may say, if at all we observe there were no question and answer which were directly given from the paragraph. However, sir, in this particular thing, these jurisprudential questions, be certain company law questions, there were certain questions which we can infer it directly from the paragraph itself. So that is something which was a bit even the surpriseful, yet it is something which I found a bit easy when compared to the previous 2022 and 2021 papers.
True. And for that, now coming to this, after having this conversation, I want to ask this question to you, Nikhil. Is that now how much role basics or conceptual clarity is going to play in the coming year? Okay.
Yes, sir. So, sir, actually, if we see the analogy from 2021, 2022. So the amount or the contribution of recent judgments is something which is, according to me, is being reduced from time to time. And there is more emphasis of basics. Even though, sir, if we basically compare only 2023 itself, even though they asked the paragraph from the recent judgment itself, what all I felt the CLAT consortium is trying to ask is they're trying to test the basics of the particular candidate. So, sir, even in the upcoming itself, so since in this particular 2023, CLAT gave completely from the basics. So in order to surprise the students in 2024, they might give completely from the recent judgments in 2024. We might not know.
Yes.
So whatever I feel is for 2024, it can be a mixed bag or it can be completely from recent judgment, but there can be no paper without basics. So basics is something which is sine qua non, is what we say in legal language. That is something which is the must and should say. So that's what I've concentrated upon the last 15 days of my class preparation as well. So the recent judgment plays a very important role, I understood. But the basics is something which actually, sir, what we can say, helped me in getting the score which I got today. It's completely the basics, sir. So to be honest, sir, if at all we see the amount of cases, those recent judgments which I've read, no single judgment came in the paper. However, it's all the basics, it's all the revision which I've had from the basics is something which has helped me. So that's the importance of basics which I felt I can glean from the paper.
Yeah. Now another thing is that as you were saying, basics is one of the important part this time that has played major role, right, in 2023 paper. Nikhil, I want to ask you, I mean, in the last 2 years or 3 years probably, CLAT was really unpredictable. I mean, sometimes
Yes,
they're
sir.
asking this, sometimes they're asking this, and you were also saying, yes, sir, you never know next time they're coming up with the recent judgments, more recent judgments coming, who authored this particular judgment, what is the bench, what is the citation, because they have done it in
Yes,
the
sir.
book also, right? Now, how you going to, how you are going to advise to your junior, okay, that how to tackle this unpredictability, though it's a very, very subjective thing and very difficult to say, but how to tackle this unpredictability of the CLAT? ये कैसे tackle किया जा सकता है? Yeah.
Sir, because sir, if we basically see, if it all CLAT is something which in a broad way we can divide it into two things. Sir. One is recent judgments, other thing is the basics of the concept. So say first we'll deal with the concept. So one thing which I think we can keep hold of is the concept, sir, more than recent judgments. So sir, if we can see recent judgments in this particular paper, even though there are n number of Supreme Court judgments, more than 150, they picked up from Bombay High Court. So we don't know from where will they pick up. So that is something which is not in our hands. Now, what is something which is in our hands is the basics which we have to master. So my advice personally would be that whatever 6-7 months which we have to hone up completely on our basics. So for example, sir, let's say daily if we give up 3-4 hours a day. No, that's what I've done, sir. Even though I've prepared for 4-5 months, I had to tackle my semester exams and between mid semesters and semesters, my sports, and then I had to do basics and then reading judgments, sir. And then as you advised, I started writing cases in notes rather than keeping it on computer. So I was writing it down. So in order to tackle all this, I used to keep for class 2 hours a day. So I used to keep for revision 1.5 hours and then for cases half an hour. So sir, what all I want to say is instead of emphasizing more on recent judgment, I would rather say you emphasize more on the basics, which basically matter the most, which basically helps me in this particular. Even though the unpredictability comes, sir. For example, sir, let's say in the next year paper, they give you more on recent judgments, ask you about author. Now, sir, for example, there are 100 judgments and there will be 300 judges who is going to give you that. Now, it is completely impossible for a human to remember each and every judge. Now, we might try for 6 months, 8 months, we don't know, and we can't even remember. So, as a human, possibility is something where I feel we can find it in the basics. So, since that is something which we can master, so for the rest, amount of emphasis or more emphasis, I would rather say 60-40 emphasis, we put more on basics, completely understand the concepts of 10-12 subjects which we have for the 6-7 months, keep on revising it, and then even for the recent judgments, sir. And then more important, sir, which I felt was for basically basics is the mock tests as well, sir. So basically, even for Jurisedge mocks. So for the last 16 days, I've given approximately 17 to 18 mocks. Sir. I used to give mocks and then I used to revise. So that is a testing our basic revision and how were our basics and then did we leave any particular part. So it's like reading and then testing. So it's all in this. So my emphasis for juniors is completely upon our basis, more than reading judgment.
True, true. And another thing that I want to ask you is that this time CLAT is held in the month of December for the first time in the history,
Yes,
right?
sir.
So far as I know. But one thing is, how did you cope up with this preparation? Matlab, this time you had the semester exam and then again this
Yes.
CLAT, anyone attempting the ALET, there are ALET exam. Okay, so it's a bit of a hodgepodge to attempt all those things when midterm exam is coming in the
Yes,
way.
sir.
The next 3 4 months, last 2 months, everything is there. Intern, midterm,
Yes,
ALET,
sir.
CLAT. Even many students, their exams are clashed with the either ALET or CLAT exam. Okay,
Yes.
so first, how to tackle this situation, because your junior or the coming year, they are going to face the same situation again, and you people are the
Yes,
first
sir.
time to face this kind of trauma, because this is a
Yes.
really different kind of situation. How, I mean, what is your experience during this situation? Could you please enlighten regarding that?
So like what I felt was that since I started around August, so basically it's around 4 5 months of preparation. So sir, if we I didn't prepare completely for 4 5 months. So if we basically remove the entire November month, which I couldn't prepare because I had end semester exams, so I had to prepare only for 4 months. So that took daily around 1 2 hours. So what I felt was that it completely depends on time management of that particular student. So you might not read for entire days. It's all depends on keeping, for example, setting aside 1 2 hours a day. Because you have the rest extracurricular activities, you have your college days, you have your end semester, mid semester, you have your sports, etc. So each thing has its own way, each thing has its own priority. So it's like you have to set up your own priorities. So like what is the major advantage in Damodaram Sanjeev National Law University? Our classes end up at 1:30. So after that, what we used to do was, what at least I used to do, after that I used to go eat and then take some rest. And then after till evening, I used to eat for 1.5 hour, 2 hours. And rest apart, I used to play, enjoy, and etc. Now, those 2 hours, sir, since I said earlier, those 2 hours, I'll give my 300% for CLAT. It's like 1.5 hour for basics, and then my be it IPC, CRPC, whatever 12 subjects which were there. So I divided first, I started with criminal law, that is IPC, CRPC evidence, then a bit civil law, then company law, like that. Then, sir, I used it completely depends on time management, sir. Each person has his own way of learning. So my learning is this. I cannot give up my sports or my playing time for study. I cannot give up either of it for the either of them. So it's like it's completely a thing, sir. And with respect to end semesters, sir, since that is also equally important for me. So what I did was that, sir, since already I had 3 months of preparation, now subsequent to November 30, I'll be having 16 more days of preparation. So that is something where I can completely give up for CLAT. So what I did was, until October end, I used to prepare for both CLAT. Now subsequently, I completely stopped the CLAT, sir. And then I started preparing more for end semester. And in between, I used to read a bit of judgments, and then I used to write. For recent judgments, I used to read a bit of few. But the moment end semesters were nearing, I stopped reading for CLAT. But the moment my exams were over, that is around November 25th, I completely sat down for CLAT. Now then I used to revise in the morning when I woke up. I used to revise recent judgments. Then I used to revise my basics, and then it's completely revision for the next 15 20 days. And then I used to give mocks, and then I analyze those mocks. I used to find out where my weaknesses were. Then I used to read out. And then the last 3 days of CLAT, I did not read anything, sir. So I just left it. No, sir, completely the gist is that, sir, it completely depends on time management. Sir. So even though this was the first time that CLAT was there along with this particular thing, it completely is there in the time management. You need not keep 8 9 hours. Even daily 2 3 hours is fine for CLAT, but those 2 hours, a proper guidance. So that's the reason why, sir, if I remember rightly, in August, when I had my seniors advice, like I guess it's in Makur Bhaiya. So I called him up. So he was like, it's completely self-preparation, Nikhil, but however, I took guidance from Jurisedge. So I then applied for the interview. Then I had a talk with you, sir. So then I took up this particular capsule course. So then I understood what exactly the pattern is, how to prepare and all. So it's like the guidance plus what to read and all. Now that gives you an edge over others. It's a simple point.
True. So you talk to Sahil also. So there are a lot
Yes,
of
sir.
students every time from DSNLU, maximum students they talk to Sahil. And मतलब हर साल DSNLU से तो NLSI और नालसार पक्का है, ठीक है?
Yes, sir.
There are students. So, acha, another very important thing, Nikhil, that I want to ask you, ठीक है? As you said, the unpredictability. But one thing, it's not wise now, क्योंकि as you said, आप थोड़ी देर पहले बात कर रहे थे कि now basics are very important and 5-6 months basics preparation, whose basics are not that good, उसके लिए बहुत important है वो 5-6 months they focus on the basics and they give the 60% to basics and rest 40% to judgment. So it would be very wise from now on कि they should start the preparation early rather than waiting for ending the exam. 8 semester exam खत्म होते हैं जून जुलाई में, उसके बाद preparation start करो. What would
Yes, sir.
you advise कि चलो पहले थोड़ा थोड़ा basics start करते हैं, complete the basics and then because एक one point of time September, October, November, एक month तो पूरा आपका that will go in either
Yes, sir.
end sem or mid sem, something 45 days will go. What do you suggest for that?
Yes, sir. So like the amount of time you can put for CLAT, the more the time, the better the result would be, sir. Sir, what I felt was, since I realized a bit late that I have to attempt CLAT, so that is why I started at August. So had it been a bit more early, so I would have got a better rank.
Yes.
Now the point is that, sir, for example, let's say for the students who want to attempt it next year. So what my suggestion is that if you want to start it early, you'll be having edge over others in a very big manner. That from now on, if you start studying, is that the first thing which you don't have when compared to others who are going to start late is the tension or the burden which you'll be having on your head. So from now on, if you can just put half an hour, 45 minutes, for example, so let's say you were very weak at IPC. So if you put 1 month from today, and then sir, for example, let's say our Jurisedge classes are around 19 or 16 classes for IPC, I guess. So I was a bit weak at IPC, so sir, I started with IPC, then my revision was complete. Now I'm not that particular expert, yeah, but I'm very much perfect with IPC because of that particular revision. Now, sir, it's completely so the moment you start early, the more edge you have with others. So that's, sir, like if the very moment you start right now, you identify the areas where you're weak, and then you start preparing on that particular weak area. So that's the moment, for example, let's say others start by July or something. So by that particular July, you'll be perfect with all the other areas. So from July, maybe you can start concentrating on the rest 40%, that is recent judgment. So then you can give up 60% to judgment, 40% on revision. So that's by the end of October, you will be covering literally 100% of judgments and 100% of this thing. So that you can be concentrating on mocks and etc. So that by the end of, I think, even though you give up 1 month of preparation also, the rest 10 days of revision itself will suffice for CLAT. So you need not wait for July, sir. It's completely the best that if you start it from early.
Yeah. Absolutely true. As early as possible. आप जब
Yes,
जाके
sir.
आप सवेरे आपके लिए, and you can start as early as possible. Now, another very important thing that I want to ask you is that this time, a lot of students say time management is one of the issue that they face during the exam, because there are 12 passages. They have to go back and forth every time while reading the passage, coming back again, find out the answer, because the question was set in that manner. Student had to go through the passage at least twice, each and every passage twice or thrice. So time management, though passages were lesser this time in comparison to the last year or even 2022. But what to do for the time management? How to manage this time? Because either students, they are lagging behind. There are some easy questions they have left it because of the time management.
Yes, sir.
Shed some light on that.
Yes, sir. Like there are several methods with which we can actually follow this up. Like one is something where the easiest approach which I felt or which I followed was increase your reading speed, sir, which is something which I have been preparing myself since my 11th class for CLAT UG as well. So, sir, even in CLAT UG, if you basically see what they basically prepare for us is the reading comprehension, reading speed. That for 1 minute you have to read these number of words, etc. Now that is one thing which we can use. Or the second thing is that the first you can read questions first. Also, in this particular thing, since many of even my friends also have left many easy questions because of lack of time. Now, in this particular thing, what we could do is that the first we can read the questions and then to see if we could answer them without reading the paragraph. Now, there are a few questions, to be honest, which we could answer without even referring to paragraph. Now, those could have been answered had we not wasted our time with the paragraph. Now, this is one of the methods which we could devise. And the other thing is that we could first of all skim through the paragraph first and get a basic outline as to what exactly the paragraph is all about. Now, so for example, let's say the paragraph is all about IPR and patents, for example. Now, we could just skim through, okay, this is the gist of it. Now, then go through questions. Now, then, for example, sir, if at all we skim the question and answer a few questions, maybe 5 or 6 could be answered. The rest 4 questions, I think could be answered again by referring, and then we could spot on easy. Now, this is the another method. Now, sir, all these could be answered according to me personally by giving mock tests. Now, that is what I was saying before also. The more the mock test, the more the better. Sir. What all I was doing from December 1st to 16 was giving mocks and mocks. It's all because first of all is the time management. Mock tests give you not only the time management, but also gives you weaknesses, gives you different number of questions. Like Jurisedge, I could trust, to be honest, it gave me different questions which I didn't expect that they would come. So that prepared me in different ways. The moment you identify those weak areas, I did research and then I wrote notes, I revised it daily. So, sir, the mock tests are very important things for time management. Now, sir, the moment you prepare for mock tests, the mock tests are obviously for 2 hours. And there will be paragraphs in mock tests as well. So that is something which they could also use. So these are different things which we actually experiment in. Sir. Now, what we need to do is that from the early on itself, since the paragraph might become very big from the next year CLAT as well, we need to start experimenting, and then if at all that thing is something which will be our weakness, sir, we need to identify it earlier and then correct it. Sir. Because if that is something which will persist, then it will be a very big headache for us to complete the entire paper. Because sir, we need to complete the paper and then revise it for the next question which we have left to revise it later. Sir, I've completed my paper for around 1 hour 45 minutes. And then I had time for 15 minutes to again recheck, so that I had to attempt a few more questions which I've circled so that might strike later for an answer. Now, sir, the moment you basically attempt mocks and correct this thing, you'll have an edge like 10-15 minutes at the end, so that you could sit in a peaceful manner, think for answer, and then do it. So it's like, so to be honest, mock test and then preparing early, identifying the issue, and then trying different things and sorting out an answer is the best solution.
Definitely. And thank you for very elaborative answer. The reason being, this thing has to be addressed, and you have given very beautiful explanation to it, because the reading speed is one issue that has to be sorted out. One has to understand the law. It's not only reading. You have to read and understand and logically and legally connect the things, legal and the question, everything, right? So that part, for that your basics have to be strong. Otherwise, you'll not be able to do that so fast. And mocks, definitely 3 things are very, very important to go through with that. So yeah, Nikhil, last question that I want to ask you. You were there as always from DSNLU every time the students join and they get into Endless Bangalore and Nalsar this time also. So how was the journey with Jurisedge so far? How was your journey with Jurisedge so far?
It was very wonderful, to be honest. Jurisedge, to be honest, it gave me the guidance as to how to prepare for CLAT. At August, when I thought of attempting CLAT, be it for joining LLM or be it for PSUs, which I had in mind. So I didn't know how to attempt CLAT, or I didn't have any idea as to how to prepare. And I was very weak in a few areas, as I said earlier. So then I texted to Sahil Bhaiya, then we had a chat, then he said this. So then I had a chat with you, then you said this is the correct course, then I had applied for it. So the moment I started listening to the classes, especially the criminal law classes, family law classes, and constitutional law classes, ROIMAM classes, and then the recent judgments classes. So basically that entrenched my emphasis and then my principles and my knowledge on basics. What all I gained from Jurisedge is my lesson that we need to concentrate more on basics rather than on recent judgments. If not, sir, I was completely before Jurisedge, I was completely under the impression that we need to emphasize more on recent judgments. After joining Jurisedge, I was completely changing my perspective and then gave more emphasis on basics. So that is something which helped me in getting my 183 rank. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Nikhil. Thank you sharing all your views with us, and it's our pleasure
Thank you so much, sir.
growth hack your career with
Thank you so
the
much, sir.
PG rank. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.